Ladies and gentlemen, this interview is brought to you by the 21-Day Challenge. So if you are an entrepreneur, high achiever, and you're vaguely dissatisfied, you feel like you're not achieving the results that you want to reignite your self-belief, your passion, your drive to go achieve your goals, I love inspiring people to get that fire lit underneath them again so they can crush their goals. So over the course of 21 days, we'll be working one-on-one together, daily check-ins, weekly deep dives to make sure that you are on track and on point. Your subconscious crap is gone. We're getting that out, uprooting it, letting it go, releasing it, healing it, all that stuff so that you can succeed like never before. And we'll dial in your habits, your daily and nighttime routines. It'll be a lot of fun. Actually, it'll be really intense and probably not so comfortable because you'll stretch and become your greatest possible self. But hey, you want it, right? Yes, you do. Okay, so if you're interested, send me an email, send me a message. Would love to talk to you about that and send you the intake form and see if you're a good fit for it. Cool? Cool. Very cool. Now, we also have an iTunes review of the week, and it's left by Miss Bree Seeley. And Bree says, Chris is a brilliant light in the world. His energy and enthusiasm is palpable. So grateful he started this podcast to share it with more people. So if you want to leave us a review, we always appreciate that. Just head to beyourgps.com/iTunes, and you can find our iTunes link there, or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self in the podcast section of your phone or on Mac, iTunes, or you can search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on Facebook and leave us a review there. We always appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, for the woman of the hour, Miss Jane Guyn. Dr. Jane Guyn is a nationally known sex expert with a PhD in human sexuality. She's the author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, Too Busy to Get Busy, and the creator of The Lover's Journey, which is based on her transformational bedroom TM model. Because Dr. Jane's been married for over 30 years, she understands the challenges. She and her husband, Jim, have a big family and way too many pets. Although things haven't always been perfect, they have better sex now than they did when they almost got caught making out in a conference room at the county hospital when they first met. Oh my gosh, Jane, are you ready to rock this?
Gotcha.
I love that intro. That's a spicy intro.
We had a spicy relationship, I'll tell you what.
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so this is gonna be fun. I know this is gonna be fun because like you have the show In Bed with Dr. Jane, and we're gonna get there. We are totally gonna have some fun, dive into that, and how men can really transform their sex life, their self-image, and that'll show up in their business and their marketing and sales. Before that, let's dive into the theme of the day, which is reflection. So Jane, how has this concept of reflection, whether it's, what is on the inside is reflected outside or reflecting back on things, how has this concept of reflection played a part in your life?
I love that theme of reflection because what I have noticed in working with clients around the world, lots and lots of different ages, is that when it comes to sex, we kind of don't reflect. But when we do take on the concept of reflection, we know that it's our job to share with our partner what we really want. And it's also our job to listen to what our partner is reflecting back to us, to hear what he or she really wants in the bedroom. When we don't do that, when we don't reflect, that means that we're actually kind of shut down, which is what lots and lots of people do. We're expecting it to be all Hollywood, that sex is easy, right? It's so simple. Nobody needs to try hard. Nobody needs to communicate. And that makes for a difficult sex life, trouble in the bedroom, and just that it doesn't end up working out well for us in our whole lives.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. So what I'm hearing is the reflection opens up a new space for conversation, for actually hearing each other in a partnership and working on improving. It's like, hey, how did that go for you? Or what did you like about that, or what didn't you like about that experience? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Because if I just assume that I know you. You and I are partners, and I assume I know what pleases you because I assume that I know how to please a man, and then I make that assumption. I put that on you. I am not listening to the specifics about you, and so we can't have a beautiful dance together that's just about the two of us. It's me pretending to be, or me being with somebody who I've made up in my mind, and this happens all the time in relationships. And then we get bored because it's like paper doll people, and that doesn't work. That's not sexy. That's not erotic or hot.
Wow. Wow, this is awesome. I'm excited to dive into this conversation. So, Jane, before we go any further, tell us a little bit more about what you're working on today and what is In Bed with Dr. Jane and what you do for your clients.
Yeah, so I show up in bed like this
Hmm.
on Facebook Live. It's going to be a podcast at some point soon,
Sweet.
and talk with people who also have great ideas about how to make that reflection, that connection with another person, sexually more and more authentic,
Mm,
more and more erotic, more and more fun,
mm,
funny, playful. Because we end up being so serious about sex. I think sometimes we don't. First of all, we don't talk about it. So I help people, of all ages, talk about sex, feel like they can be the type of person who asks for what they want, and I
mm.
give them permission by showing up here in my bed.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. I love that it's such a vulnerable place. Typically, bedroom, sacred, vulnerable, transparent. Like it's really just letting people in, kind of peeling back the curtains so that they can have that level of trust and connection and intimacy with you. It's beautiful. So I love the setting and how you do it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's start diving back into the journey because you're doing this amazing work today, and I fully support the work that you're doing. I'm excited to learn more for my own personal preferences and reasons and benefit. And I'm sure everyone who's listening, they want to know how do we spice up our sex life and reinvigorate it and get more energy and get more fulfillment out of it. So before we go into like the how, let's go back into the journey. How did you get here today? What was that journey like for you? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome, the wisdom that you gained along these years of being a therapist?
Yeah. Well, I didn't start out as a sex coach. Actually, I'm not really a therapist. I
Mm,
provide sex therapy in a way, but I really provide coaching.
mm,
So I'm kind of like a life coach,
okay.
but I'm a sexologist. So I provide practical tips. Now, that is not to say that I'm in the bedroom with people coaching them. People ask me that all the time, and that's
Right.
kind of sexy, but it's not what happens.
Is there a profession that does that?
Yeah, actually.
Is-
Well, some sex coaches do that. It's just
oh,
that when I'm coaching people, I am giving them ideas and then they
right.
take them back into their own relationship and then come back and tell me how it works.
Okay.
I see myself as more of a sexual concierge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how to get to the zoo, but I won't take you to see the polar bears. Anyway, so for me, it started out, Chris, I did have this fantastic and still do have a fantastic relationship with my husband, Jim.
Mm,
And when we first met, we were just like on fire in our relationship. We felt so attracted to each other. And
mm.
it's definitely true that we almost were caught by the hospital custodian in this conference room. I remember it very well right this second. And I carry with me a note that he wrote me telling me to meet him in that conference room back
Wow.
from, many, many decades ago. So,
Wow.
it was really a beautiful, passionate relationship between two people who were just madly in love.
Mm,
And we got married and, had a family and continued to have this passionate relationship in many ways. But there was this other piece of life. And I'm sure our listeners know what I'm talking about. We had kids. We actually have a huge family. We have 6 kids.
wow.
So over years, we have an adoptive, kind of a bio and adoptive family.
Uh-huh.
So we have a big family, and the kids arrived and we were great parents. We were a great team. We worked really hard on that. But when you look back, or when Jim and I look back on our life and think about what was going on, a lot of the stuff we talked about had nothing to do with that erotic connection because we were like getting it done. And you could be like an entrepreneurial couple having the same situation where you're both working in your business. Maybe you're both working at home and you're trying to get infusions off to work for you, or you're getting your opt-ins, whatever it is that you're doing in your work that just like, oh man, it's not hot. It's not sexy. It doesn't pull you into an erotic connection with your partner. This is what happened to us. In our case, it happened to be that we were parenting and, he was working and I had small jobs that I worked as well. So, we kind of went through our life. We actually lived overseas, have had a very interesting life. And yet there was this sense of, and really I'll own a lot of it. On my side, I became really into my role as a mom. And I became, I mean, of course, I was always a great mom. Who doesn't want to be a great mom? I was a great mom. And I started focusing more and more and more on my kids and on child development and all these things that I would think about, and my friends and so forth. We'd all talk about it. And I got a little also disconnected from him emotionally or sexually, really. Although we still had a good sex life, it wasn't at the top of my priority list. Right. And just the energy I brought to it in terms of thinking about, like, how can we just make this better? How can we continue to grow this? That wasn't what I was worried about, because frankly, I was kind of coasting from our earlier life. I knew we were a hot couple. I didn't worry about that. And I found out at one point along the way that there was as I'm irritable and kind of grumpy on the phone, when I do a lot of speaking, I talk to groups, companies, people, business groups. I'll be like, this is what happened in our house. I'd be like, hello. He'd call. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Nope. Yes. We need Cheerios. We're out. Yes. Can you pick that up? Yeah. Soccer. It's over at West Junior High. Bye. Click. Wow. And nothing sexy. Meanwhile, he knew another woman who was at work or in his life, and she wasn't like that. I mean, she was like, hey, you're so, you're attractive, and, you're awesome. And, I know your wife's tired. I know she's busy. Well, I'll help you out. And luckily for us, they didn't have what we'd call a real affair, i.e. they weren't naked, but the rest of it was there. And so they were connected because she was giving him what I really wasn't. I was getting my thing. And, I'm not blaming myself. We both had a part in it. Right. It was just kind of what happened. It happens to so many couples. Yeah. You have no idea. This happens all the time. And luckily for us, this, as much as it was difficult for me and for him, that we realized we kind of got off track this way, it gave us a new look at our relationship and really encouraged us to say, wait a minute, what happened to us? What happened to what happened to that couple that couldn't keep their hands off each other for one shift in the hospital, right? Who were like willing to risk their jobs for, by being up in this hospital conference room. What happened to us? How did we become that couple that cared more about soccer than we did about getting together naked? Yeah. So that's when I went on this journey and ended up studying sex in all the sexiest places in the world, and did all sorts of, learned so many other things that I'd never known about myself, and also really just helped me to understand how this happens to other women and help them, so I can help them and other couples avoid the pitfalls that we had encountered in the middle of that like too busy life that we had.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I'm so grateful that you were able to communicate through it and resolve it. What did that take? Because I'm sure there's couples out there who go through a challenge like this, and it causes the split. It causes the like it's unresolvable for them. Yeah. What was it that got you guys through it, and how did you approach that?
Well, we got help, and people do that when you run into a problem in your relationship. People tell you to get counseling, and we did that. In retrospect, the counseling that we got, it was a really well-trained therapist, and she was a wonderful woman. I was really angry. Jim felt like really judged. He hadn't really done anything in his world that was like, hey, this is nothing. But to me, it felt like a lot. We had this big conflict. And she was a great therapist, but I'll tell you what, she had no knowledge really of sexuality. And that's one of the things that helped me to become motivated, that I wanted to be somebody who could give people real information about why this type of thing happens. Because it's not like we didn't have a bad relationship. We didn't have a problem communicating. We were very respectful. Many pieces were in place. But this piece wasn't. The eroticism, the fact that we were not just hitting on that and focusing on that, was not there. And it wasn't something that in her work she was really concerned about. She was talking about like our upbringing and how did your mom treat you, and the typical, right? therapists, what they do. Love therapists. They're fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my best friends are therapists. Some of my great clients are therapists. I understand that. But it's not that they aren't trained to talk about sex. They're trained to talk about what they refer to as family of origin issues. So what, like your childhood and, how these patterns have come into your current life.
Right.
So, people will seek out therapy when they run into these issues, and that's okay. And I certainly support that. But I suggest that people also really look at the sexual piece, Chris, because when you ignore that, you might be in therapy for 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, we didn't do that, but some couples, they're just like always back again, and they don't get the results they want because the therapist isn't guiding them to look into where is the erotic disconnect in your current situation.
Wow, that's powerful question. So this therapist, she wasn't focusing on the erotic component, and that led you to say, well, I'm looking at this origin, the wounds of the past and how these patterns were formed. And what I'm hearing is that you weren't getting to the core issue. You weren't getting to what really would have made the difference for you and Jim. So you're like, hey, what can we do? How can we learn more about this? And you somehow learned about the eroticism, the sex aspect. How did that thought come to you? When did you start thinking that could be a possible place to focus on and learn about?
So I'd always been interested in sexuality. I was trained as a nurse, trained at UCLA, and a nurse practitioner in family planning, women's health. And I'd had a certain amount of training around sex as a college student and in graduate school. But it had been a long time. And really the things I learned about then were really very much about just the physical nature of sex. It didn't have what I refer to as a holistic approach. And that's the approach I take with my clients now. Because sex is not just a physical act, as we all know. And I love hearing you talk to so many transformational leaders about how our lives are much more than just one facet. They are multidimensional. And I totally appreciate your approach to that, Chris. And that's really true when it comes to sex, is that it's not a one facet situation. No. If it were, it'd be so easy, right? It'd be so easy. But, it isn't. And so I knew there was a lot more to learn about it than what I had been taught. And I just started seeking that information out. I actually, Googled sex coaching and saw these two people in my computer who are some of them, we're world-renowned people. And I remember they're now great friends. One of them has tragically passed away, but I remember looking at my computer and looking at their faces and thinking, honestly, and this is interesting for me to say now, but I remember looking at their faces and thinking, I wonder if they're weird. Because I had the same kinds of attitudes, values, and beliefs as people who talk to me. They're like, are you weird? They want to know, what kind of person does this? Or they'll ask me, how'd you get into this? And I know that the rest of the sentence is, you don't seem as weird as I thought you would seem. So, I was looking at them and wondering, are they creepy? Are they going to be kind of something that's going to make me feel uncomfortable? And it was an interesting journey for me because I had to go through my own evolution as a person to recognize, that I had barriers myself, sexual barriers that I needed to release that were my own attitudes about things. And it was fascinating to, learn all these things about myself, about Jim, and about, other ways of being a sexual person. I mean, I don't know how anybody, well, frankly, I think I have the best job in the world. I don't know how anyone's interested in something else. It's so interesting because there's so many pieces to sex. It takes in everything from food to interior design to, exercise to physiology to transcendental energy work to deep healing to understanding ourselves at the deepest level, connecting to another person out of body even. And there's just so much to it. And when people say they're bored, I just think, okay, you and I have got to talk. Because it's obvious that you haven't realized, you missed it. There's so much there that, we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So we're just like left like, oh, well, let's do it. Well, okay. You don't even know what it is really. There's a huge field. There's so many pieces. So I just love my work.
Yeah. And especially because it's not necessarily as talked about as things like, mindset coaching or business coaching. You're more of on that kind of pioneering edge of this, because it was taboo for so many years to talk about sex, to discuss it. And now we're coming into this age, thank God, of awakening, where we can talk about everything about life without fear of being judged, because it's life. And the more we hold on to that judgment and the shame and the guilt and put that onto other people, the more we'll keep perpetuating the hate and the negativity that's in the world that is causing so much suffering and causing, kids to grow up and be not great human beings because they were mistreated when they were younger. So I love that you're on the cutting edge of this and sharing about it. So let's start diving into specifically what we need to know about sex, and especially our title today is men, why they fail at sex and how that affects sales and marketing. So let's start diving into this juicy topic.
Yeah. So this is the speech I often give, and I'll tell you what, women flock to this speech. Why men fail at sex. There's a ta-da in there. There's another piece of that, and that is women fail at sex too. It's not just men, but we women, we like to blame you guys. We've decided as a group that y'all don't know what's going on. You're impatient. You have all sorts of things. Of course, we don't look at these things in ourselves usually, right? We don't like that. We like to blame, shame and blame. We like that. So this is where people often start in their work with me, is blaming a partner, thinking if I had another guy, it'd be better. Or maybe I should be with a woman. She'd understand me. These are two pieces that come to mind really often.
Wow.
It's like, I need to become a lesbian. Lesbians are going to understand me. If I were with a woman, she'd know how to deal with me. She'd know how to please me. She knows my body. She'd understand it. So this happens a lot. So the idea of why men fail at sex is there so that we can recognize that, yes, we do blame men for difficulties with sex. That's true. And yet it's not true that they're in that alone, that failure. But we'll just do that for right now. So why do they fail at sex? There's 3 reasons. Number 1, and this, often I talk to people who are business owners, maybe small business owners, and we're all trying to get more clients. Am I right? So number 1, they don't do market research. This is the number 1 reason that men fail at sex. Because if they're trying to sell, they're trying to get engagement from their partner, trying to sell the idea of sex, and yet they assume that they know what the client, the woman, wants. They assume that they know how to please a woman, that there's no reason to ask her what she likes, that she is like every other woman they've made love to, or if they haven't had a ton of experience, or even if they have had, that she's just like every woman they've seen on porn being pleased by a porn star. They kind of take the porn, they go to Pornhub, they watch a few videos, and they're like, I got it. I know what to do.
I got it.
Okay, it's great idea in some. I mean, I understand why somebody might do that. You'd think, well, that woman looks really happy, and of course they do. But it's not real life. And even if it's amateur, there's a camera rolling for a reason. So they don't do what I refer to as market research, which means that they don't ask the questions about what you want, like, how do you like these different things? And I'm not talking about, so I've got a client who was just recently on OkCupid, And she's like, interested in getting something going on. So she, had a conversation going with this nice seeming guy, successful guy. And he started to ask her questions about sex. And he's like, well, what position do you like? That's a wrong question. Okay, I should that should be my whole business, helping guys not be stupid on websites. I'd be a millionaire many times over. I mean, really, I'll have to think about that later. But why would he say that? That's not it. It's not like, well, do you like it from behind? This is not the kind of market research I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about asking about well, I've developed a model called the bedroom model. It has 7 different areas. And one of them is desire. Okay. So bedroom, it's an acronym, D for desire. And one thing to talk to a woman about, if you're listening out here, and I know somebody's listening to us and this is going to help him, talk about what a fantastic evening might be like for her. What did it feel like? What would it look like? Where would it happen? Do you like to be in some risky business kind of thing? I don't know if you ever saw that movie with Tom Cruise where they're on the train. Love that scene. Or are you somebody who loves to be in a cozy kind of a nest with all the covers and maybe a little fire or a candle, windows closed, drapes drawn? What types of things do you desire as a woman? And tell me about your favorite time you've ever been with somebody. Could you tell me about that? What made it amazing? Just like you do with a client. If you're trying to develop a new product, okay, for your business, you're not just going to go out there and put a product out there that you don't understand, or you don't understand the market. So the market is your woman. And this is true for those of us who are women as well. If we are trying to please a man, the market is our partner, and our job is to understand that person in depth so that when we say, I want to be with you, they just it's like honey, just flowing. You know how to be with your partner. Your partner knows that this is going to be fun. Yeah. This is going to be amazing. And it's not always going to be the same either. Sorry about that. It's not always going to be the same. It's going to be amazing and different and alive. And it's going to be like that because we know each other. And because you know me, you know who I am, you understand me, and you've taken time, you've done your research. So that's the first thing. They don't do that. They make assumptions. They think, I know how to please a woman.
Wow.
Or I'm good. Or usually that comes, though, Chris, I got to say, out of insecurity. Usually we don't ask because we're like, I don't really know.
Totally.
I hope I know. If I ask, I might ask stupid questions, she's going to think I don't know what I'm doing. If I ask her too many questions.
I'm curious about the question of, tell me about your favorite time, and if that could open up thoughts about other partners of the past, how do you coach your couples to respond, or how do you open that door up in a respectful, tactful way?
Sure. Well, this is a situation that you'd have to be knowing the person you're with. There are some people who, they don't want to ever hear about something else that you ever did. Okay. Or maybe they're very triggered. Like you have a prior girlfriend and she's even hotter than your current girlfriend. I don't know how that's possible. And couldn't be, but let's say that's the case. And, sometimes people are very sensitive. So you don't want to be stupid, but you want to bring your ideas forward in a way that obviously fits for your partner. But if you don't want to tell a real time, let's say you have had a really great time. Oftentimes I'll talk with Jim. He knows that I have this previous sexual experience with somebody who's probably not watching this, but where there was pumpkin gelato involved afterwards, and there was a fireplace, and it were these incredible like quilts, and then the guy went downstairs and he got this thing of pumpkin gelato, and it was wow. Whenever, well, this is before I knew Jim. Whenever we go to a gelato place, Jim's always saying, "Hey, I wonder if they have pumpkin." You know, kind of it's a
Inside joke.
Yeah, it's a sexy thing.
Yeah.
But so you're going to talk about situations. If you don't want to say, it was Joe and it was Joe, in San Francisco at the Fairmont or something like that, you don't have to say that. But you could say, I have had fantasies, or if you're open with your partner about previous experience, like one time this happened, it was awesome. Things I'd like to do with you are these things. Beautiful. I'm wondering about how to try these things, or I read this amazing erotic novel and I'd like to try these things, or I just found that exciting, or I don't even want to do it, I just love talking about it. Let's say lots of men have fantasies about being with like more than one person. Maybe it's never going to happen, but like using desire and fantasy to communicate doesn't mean that you like signed up for it. As they say, just because you think something doesn't mean somebody's got the key to your front door and they're coming in the door. It's not like that. It's just a conversation. You're kind of understanding each other, and you are, in previous experiences you've had. To me, if you had that kind of relationship, and if you do, then that can be fun. If you feel like you're going to be totally yanked off the shelf and you're going to be freaked out for the next 3 to 6 months because you're thinking about your partner being with somebody else, then obviously evolve later, or don't ever talk about it. I mean, that's okay. You don't have to, but yeah, I think it's okay. Personally, I think it's sexy.
And I hear a healthy trust in what we have now, or whatever the relationship is that we're attempting to get into, if someone is not yet in a relationship. It's like to trust that it's enough, and to trust that like it's going to still be around, and to be able to share openly without judgment of past experiences, or potentially desired fantasies and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know that is a challenge, because if you focus on something about the previous situation that your current partner can't accomplish. For example, one of Jim's previous women had like this amazing, like luxurious blonde hair that went like all the way down to the back of her, like down to her belt buckle, belt in the back. P said to me, I remember like all this long hair. That wouldn't be a good fit for me.
Well, you could do like a wig or extensions.
I have totally done a wig before. Yeah, because that's a fun thing too. Because I'm never going to have long waist length blonde hair. Right. I could wear a long blonde wig, and that's why not play with it? Why not make the whole thing fun? We don't have to make it so serious. It's like it's become something that we're scared about or something, and we're like terrified that the other person's going to be so upset. We can take the edge off that, and that's one of the things I totally love about the conversation. Wow. That's the market research piece. Like, what do you like? Beautiful. So like, if maybe I'll go get another wig. I have a red one. It's really amazing, like bright red. Ooh, maybe I'll get a blonde one. That and go to meet him at work and be like, be like, who's the blonde? Then all of his people at work will think he's having an affair with some blonde. But that would be okay. Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny?
Well, that's awesome. I love that discussion, and the market research portion is so true. In business, you got to know your perfect client, your target audience. You have to, or else you're just going to be, spitting in the wind, so to speak. And with your love and the sex and the eroticism, like, it's important to know what is our fantasy, what is our partner's fantasy, so that we can co-create that. And I think it's just building the habit, building that level of conversation into our life. It's just we weren't taught to do that. A lot of us weren't, empowered to do that. So that's something that we can start doing more often. And one thing that I do with my girlfriend is every week we have a weekly review where we look back on our week. We look at what made us feel connected, what made us feel loved and supported. How did we manifest our dreams and desires, and what made us want to pull away. You know, what made us want to disconnect, which is a great question. But this is another question that we can add to that. You know, what kind of fantasies came up about sex or about being erotic, or what would we want to come up in the next week or so? So I think that this is an awesome thing that we're going to add to our list. Just saying, honey, if you're out there listening, we're adding it.
Right. And you know what else I really think is great, and I love that you guys do that, is talk about what happened, what do you take notes on these meetings that you
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so I just highly recommend that in that note taking you add, like, maybe there's just, I don't know, you don't have kids, you guys aren't married, but you know, you could have a discrete place where you talk about what was the best like moment you had that week. What did you like? What kinds of things are you going to remember erotically about that week? And when we keep, you know, reminding ourselves of these things, it keeps everything charged up. And then as we go through life and, you know, maybe have separations because you have to travel or something else, you understand each other better, and you can kind of cue back into those things. Remember this. Jim and I had this amazing experience in Prague once that, I mean, all either of us has to say is, you know, Prague is an awesome city. And then both of us are like, oh, it is. Or like, do you remember the St. Charles Bridge, which was where we were walking and nothing happened on the St. Charles Bridge, but, you know, we just like, it's part of our own erotic story, which I highly encourage couples to build, to write your own erotic story as a couple.
Wow.
You can do that. And, you know, why not? Why not do that?
Wow. And that's like before it happens, to kind of paint the picture, and after, or is it? Yeah,
you can do, and you might be surprised which pieces you each remember, which pieces were particularly expansive. Because one thing I've got to tell you is, if our experience and the experience of other people I've worked with is true, you'll find that as a beautiful and erotic relationship you have right now, there's potential for growth. And many of us think that when we're, you know, young and vital and, you know, and no kids, no pets. I don't know if you have pets, but, you know, that like then we're going to have the best sex of our lives. Not necessarily true, because there's more connection with yourself. And as the delayering happens through, you know, if we're growing as people, there's layering that falls off, armoring that falls off. We can connect more deeply. And, you may find that this what is fabulous today, and I'm sure it is, you know, you look back and you think, I can't believe it, but this is getting even better. And how fun is that then, to realize that, like, wow, I didn't even know that was a possibility. You know, it's like, yay, you know, I mean, it's great potential. You don't have to think you're going to be like, okay, we're great now, and then because that's what we kind of let happen in our relationships for a lot of people. Like, well, we're not in our 20s anymore.
Oh my gosh. So me and my girlfriend, we were with someone, and she had been with her husband for like 20 years or something like that. And she said, enjoy it while it lasts. And then me and my girlfriend were like, this just keeps getting better and better. This is just the beginning. And we don't need that like negative belief that, you know, like as things go on, as the marriage goes on, as you have kids, all that stuff, that it gets worse, or the intimacy lessens. No, we get closer and closer. We learn more and more about each other, and are always growing, are always curious about deepening our relationship. How can it get better? Show me how it gets better than this, you know?
You bet. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And that's because you focus on it. Because, and when you're, I mentioned this earlier, but I want to reiterate this, when you are a really sexy couple, like you guys are, you feel, at least, well, I'll speak for myself. We felt invincible. But it's like being in wicked shape, you know, and you feel like, well, I don't have to work out anymore. I'm in better shape than, you know, I'm a triathlete, I'm a CrossFit person, whatever. I can slide. We know that's not true in exercise, but somehow we think that's true in the erotic relationship we have.
Wow.
We kind of don't treat it the same. We wouldn't do that with diet. We wouldn't do it with money. We wouldn't do it with exercise or with any other area of our life, like, you know, building your business or growing a career in a corporate setting. You keep setting goals, you keep expanding, you keep growing. But somehow when it comes to eroticism and sexuality, we feel like there's nothing to do because it's kind of like just combusts at the beginning. Like you just don't have to think about it. It's like, boom, you're just there. Right. But eventually you may have to rethink it a little bit so that you keep creating the space for that to keep combusting, because you can put out that fire with enough other things that are happening, just like your workout schedule. You get too busy, if you have no time at all, you're not going to stay ripped, period.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. Right. You might have great photos from the past, but that's not gonna, like, don't ask me to take my shirt off now, right? I mean, people who were like, you think, I don't know if you know that story or the song, the Bruce Springsteen song, that Glory Days song about, he's thinking about the old times and how it was back then. And, kind of looking back, and now his life has really become muted. He's just not himself anymore. He doesn't feel like his sexy self anymore. And that's what I help people to do, is like feel like their sexy self again. Wow. Because a lot of us kind of give up on it. It's not necessary to do it. It tends to be what the culture expects, just like what your friend said. Yeah. Oh, enjoy it while it lasts. That's too bad. She should give me a call. There's a lot of potential there. A lot of potential.
I'm going to take a note right now. Hold on.
You bet. Have her call me.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to connect you two. And
Good.
As far as the second reason, I know we covered the first one, market research. What's reason number 2 why men fail at sex?
Okay. They make bad offers. So it's completely related to the first piece, and they have assumptions about what their woman wants, and then they offer bad sex. I mean, sorry to say it, sometimes, even often, men, because they've made assumptions, and remember, women have this as well. So women, if we were talking about women, they make bad offers as well. Right. Unengaging sex, like ho-hum partnership on the part of the woman, like, okay, not interested. But men make the offer oftentimes of, rushing through the connection with their woman, assuming that they understand what she wants. So deciding that the same way it was last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, is the right way she wants it. And I can't tell you how often I talk to women about this, like, there's just no passion. It's not playful. He doesn't seem interested or care about me. He just wants it and not me. Wow. It's all about him and his pleasure. It's not about me. Or if it is about me, he seems impatient, or he's so goal oriented that I feel like if I don't respond to him, he gets irritable. It's this, and the sex that's being offered is, it just lacks imagination, and it's not custom. She wants it custom, and she doesn't want it to be like, she wants it custom to not only her, but to today. Wow. So not like, okay, I know you want candles, you want a bubble bath. I don't know, people don't do bubble baths anymore, but you want these things, and I'm going to do these things, and then it'll be good. So the guys kind of assume, like, I figured it out. It worked once or 5 times even. So every time I'm going to do the same thing. So almost like, how do I make it go? I want it to, because guys want their woman to be turned on. They don't want to have sex with a partner who's not interested. But and maybe there was a time when she was like really aroused and hot, and he was like, yeah, that's it. I'm remembering everything I did that time. I'm going to do it exactly the same way. Well, guess what? That's not it. Which there's no dance in that. There's no play. There's no teasing. Like, what is it? What can I figure out about you today? Because when I say that women think about becoming partners with other women, one of the reasons is they assume the other woman would understand that. Right. That it's not black and white for women more. Women, for one thing, it's harder to figure out how to please a woman. Her anatomy is different. Her psychology is different. Men pretty darn easy. Not as complicated for women to figure out. Okay, they're simpler for women as partners to figure out a man. Plus, the woman's role in it is simpler in many ways. But a guy, he's got to figure it out in a different way, and it's not as clear cut. And we women are pickier, and we're harder to. We may or may not tell you the truth sometimes. A lot of women don't tell the truth about their pleasure. They lie.
Wow.
I hate to tell you that. Wow. And they may have been lying for a long time, and then that gets complicated. Like she's not been actually getting pleasure, and she said she did, and so then there's the lie that needs to be kind of taken apart. And so the sex that they're offering is what I refer to as a bad offer. It's not the offer isn't customized, and it's not. It needs to be like a beautiful lover is there with his woman, just like showing up fully present, no goals, fully present, and just looking at her every time like it's the first time and saying in his mind and to her, what can I do to bring you pleasure right now? I mean, beautiful if you can do it. It takes a different kind of a embodiment, and yet sometimes the woman doesn't know how to voice it, so that's on her. And there's some of it that isn't even, you're voicing it with your energy or your nonverbal communication, because women want a vigorous partner. They don't want him to be like, how do I touch you here? So there's complications with it. I get that it's hard. He's supposed to be manly and aggressive, but never too aggressive.
Right.
He's supposed to be powerful, but patient, Yeah, it's challenging, but the offer that's made is not custom, and it's, it's a one-size-fits-all thing, and it is usually kind of boring. It's focused on his pleasure and not hers, and or it's so focused on her pleasure that he's kind of obsessed with that and becomes kind of like almost like he's got. Like, how many times can I make her orgasm? Like, he's become so goal oriented about hers that he's making it like somehow she feels inadequate because she's not, as he wants more from her. Somehow she feels like she's pressured in it. And so it's really, you're creating a beautiful, like dance. I think about dance. That's what it is. It's this beautiful dance right then. Not a choreographed thing, but just like two people like, yes.
So speaking of the choreograph, one of the questions I had is, can we plan for something during the week? Because I know as like entrepreneurs, we want to have things in our schedule. If it's not in our schedule, it doesn't get done, kind of thing. That's the mentality that I've been taught and typically operate by. So like, how do we keep things spontaneous, but also and fresh and new, and like the man creates and innovates while not seeming, while still like tapping into, hey, what do you want, babe? What is it that gets you off? What is it that fulfills you? Is that something that we can ask beforehand, and then taking that information and say, okay, how do I create this for her during the week or something like that? I'm curious on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's an interesting question because there are people who like hate what they refer to as planned sex. They like have a thing about that, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a Wednesday couple or whatever. They get it's kind of an uptight feeling, like, they want it to somehow spontaneously degenerate. Like, we couldn't keep our hands off each other and we were on the dining room table and, it was, Tuesday at 3:30 or, and that it's not okay if it's not like that. And I push back on that because, and that's okay if that's your situation, sure, go for that if it works for you. But for a lot of people, it doesn't work that well because people's lives are busy. And so, they don't manage it. And so they actually default to none rather than like something scheduled. And when you talked about earlier about your weekly debrief with your girlfriend, that's a great time to kind of get a sense of what worked, what didn't work. Maybe you have a time when you're like, we are going to have the most amazing experience. I have my schedule blocked from 2 to 4 on Thursday, and you are on the menu. You are it. That's it. I have you, like, you are so going to be like mine during that time. Who hates that?
Wow.
Why? How is that ever a bad thing? It's like saying, well, we want to have the most delicious meal ever, and we will never make a reservation. So we're going to go outside. I live in Bend, Oregon. We've got food carts. I love food carts. So, but we're going to go out there and, go to the food carts. Awesome. Love the food carts. But we've got this restaurant down the street that's got an incredible tasting menu. And if you want to go there, you are not going to walk in there just any Tuesday night, because they book out weeks in advance. Yeah, you're not going to go, period. So if you're okay with the food carts, great. But if you want to go to Ariana, you need to make a plan. And why is it a problem if we're making a plan to have a great sex date, but we're totally fine, if we want to go to a 5-star restaurant, that we need to make a reservation. We need to plan for it. It doesn't make the food bad. Like, why is that? I don't get that. Like, why is it bad? Like, it's great at a restaurant. Why isn't it great in our relationship? Still great food. Everything's still awesome.
Good point. Very, very good. I love it. So let's get to point number 3. What is the third reason why men fail at sex?
They rush the sale.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're related, okay? But they and we do this in our businesses because we want to serve so much. We also, we want to have a vigorous business. We want to serve our clients. And sometimes we get in there and we understand our client. We have a good offer, but somehow, instead of letting that person during a strategy session or in a moment with them, letting them really feel like they want to work with us, we just push it too hard. That happens in relationship with men. Will rush the sale. And here's what happens that I think is, if you remember nothing from this interview, but this one thing, guys and gals, this is it. So there's a reason that this happens. For men, they hold their erotic energy in the core. So from the head down through the genitals, not so much in the feet, but in the core. One of the ways the men rush the sale often is they grab the woman in the core. They grab her breast, they grab her crotch, or another personal favorite, they send dick pics because they think that's great. That's part of rushing the sale, right? They think she's going to love this. They go to something more explicit right away rather than allowing things to evolve. And that's because they don't understand that women do not hold their erotic energy in the core. They hold it in the periphery, okay? Wow. In the hands, in the feet, in the head, in the hair. That's why we don't send you photos like that usually. What we do is we go to the salon and get our nails done, right? We get mani-pedis. We're constantly getting our hair done. We're brushing our hair. We're getting our, working on our feet, because that's where our erotic energy is. It's in the hands, in the feet, in the head, right up here. So if you want to not rush the sale with your woman, start doing this with your hands on her hand, up her arms, on her feet. Give her a foot massage. You're still moving in the direction of a fantastic erotic connection with her. And she may be just forget it, I want you, and bring you right in because she's ready for you to be there with her. Right. But for a lot of women, they just would adore being with a man who would just if you say to your woman, somebody who's, whoever's listening to this, if you say to your woman, how about I give you a foot massage? You're more likely to have a fantastic sexual experience with your partner, with your wife, with your girlfriend, with your woman. If you say that, than if you send her a dick pic. Guaranteed. That you're going to have a better time with her. If you even say to her, hey, you want to go, why don't you go get a mani-pedi? I'll be here and I'll get some stuff ready. I'll be, I'll make sure the bathroom is immaculate, and I'm gonna wash the linens, change our sheets.
Ooh.
That's,
sexy.
Yeah, just saying. Yeah. So, because men don't understand that when they push like that, they push for, maybe they've done everything else is great, but now they push through to a specific sexual situation before the woman is fully ready. And that's what I mean when I say they rush the sale. The woman is not, she's open, she's interested, she wants you, but she's not fully ready to receive you as a sexual partner yet. She's opening like a flower opens. It's almost like you take a bud and you're pulling the blossoms. Let the flower fully open for you, you know, in all ways, and you will have a gorgeous experience with her, because now she's there. She has presented herself for you. And, you know, there's nothing like that. That is bliss. That is your beautiful moment of connection.
Wow. So incredible.
All right.
Jane, this is, I love this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you taking a stand for this, this to be available to couples and, you know, men and women everywhere, to have amazing sex, amazing eroticism, and just to own that like feeling of fulfillment and joy and ecstasy that comes from fulfilling that area of our life, because it's here, you know, it's present, it's everywhere, and if it's important to us, then we will go to work on it and we will grow it. And I love how you gave us those 3 reasons. Awesome, super powerful, and I know I got a ton out of it. Anyone who listens or watches this will get a ton out of this. Jane, you're awesome. So
wonderful.
I'm sure. Yes, thank you. So I'm sure people are wondering, how do they take that next step with you, and how do they stay connected with you? I know you mentioned you have a show, and you're considering, you know, you're going to be moving it to a podcast soon. So just tell us about how we can stay connected.
Absolutely. So go to my website if you're interested in getting more info from me. One of the things I'd love to give you is a tool called Feel Like Your Sexy Self Again. And you can get that at, will there be a link, Chris, in the show notes? But it's janeguyn.com/feel like your sexy self again. And so I'd love to give that to you as a gift. And if you have an interest in talking about your relationship with me, I just, you know, I have tons of time in my schedule blocked off just to have these conversations. I love these conversations with women, with couples, and they're completely free to use. So you can book a complimentary conversation with me. And I've had people tell me that conversation, even if we never worked together, has been more effective for their relationship than months of counseling. It just starts the flow of the conversation, that juicy conversation that we avoid having, all facilitated for you. So yeah, I'd love to do that. So you can find that on my website too. There's a link to that. And yeah, I'd be happy. You can see me on Facebook Live. You know, find me there. It's open to the public. So I'd love to share that show with you, In Bed with Dr. Jane.
And when is that? Fridays?
Yeah.
Fridays at what time?
10 a.m. Pacific.
10 a.m. Pacific every Friday. Jane is there, and definitely stay connected with her. Go to the website, janeguyn.com, and then /feel like your sexy self. I'll put that link in the show notes. I also typed it into the Facebook live feed comments, so look for it there as well. And Jane, you are incredible, and I love the work that you're doing. I love people who are pushing the boundaries, who are innovating, who are tapping into these untapped sources of wisdom and wealth and joy and prosperity and pleasure for us as human beings to become our greatest possible self. You are doing amazing work, and thank you so much for doing it.
It was a pleasure, Chris. Loved it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. Have the best day ever. We'll see you soon, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.